we're going to move over into the investing piece of this, and this sort of what's beyond clean tech investing, and where is all this going, and how does this the next generation of investment strategies, or the current generation, really accelerate everything that we're trying to do here. And to have that conversation, two very good friends of ours, Andrew Shapiro, the founder and partner of Broadscale Group, and the founder and managing partner of DBL Investors. Please welcome Nancy Pfund.
Oh, okay. Oops. Hello, everybody.
Good morning.
Can you hear me? Are we on? All right. Well, I am looking forward to this conversation. Nancy Pfund is a friend and longtime co-conspirator in the broader effort to use capital to change and transform our economy in a way that will help to mitigate climate change, create a low-carbon economy, and a more sustainable culture broadly. And so it's really great to be back with Nancy and talk about these issues with all of you. And I know we have the sidebar going, and so we encourage those of you who are interested in these topics to start thinking about topics or questions you might want to add to the conversation. Nancy and I were in New York earlier this week for the annual Climate Week. And it was an interesting session because this has gone on now, Climate Week in New York, concurrent with the UN General Assembly for a number of years. And it was different this year because we have the benefit of the Paris Agreement from last year. And so whereas in years past the conversation was always, we need to get to an international agreement bringing the nations of the world together to commit to doing something about climate change, we've now gotten there. So one of the questions was, how do we actually make good on that collective agreement? And there are a number of forces at play. There are innovations in technology, there are changes in policy and regulation, and then there's the role of capital and investment. And since Nancy has been really at the forefront of using venture capital and investments like Tesla and Solar City that she can tell us about, I wanted to dig in on that. So let's start there. What is the role of capital and impact capital in particular in driving transformation?
Right. Well, it's great to be on the stage again with you, Andrew, and thanks to the VERGE team for bringing us all together. I've been following the tweets during the week, and it's just a fabulous gathering. And it really feels to me like there's a passing of the baton. I mean, we did get the Paris Agreement, and now it's up to us to actually develop the technologies, products, services, entrepreneurs to implement the change. And so that, I think, is why there's a resurgence in interest in clean tech investing. I think that the impact capital that has gone in, and we're obviously impact investors for over 13 years now, has because we've been able to be successful and create some iconic companies, now you're getting other constituencies to join in. More family offices, more foundations, endowments even. And so there's now a recognition that this isn't just something that happens in negotiating rooms, that it really has to happen in companies across the world. And so I think that that's what we're seeing. There's no shortage of deal flow. I mean, I will say that every time I'm on a panel, when I get back to my email, I've gotten 5 or 10 business plans during the panel. So
Send them now. Send them.
Exactly. Let's break that record. I think, and also we haven't seen the frothiness of some of the other sectors in terms of valuations. So for value investors, it's a great time to be in this sector.
So let's talk about the different areas in which folks are investing, including yourself, and how they relate to your impact-driven goals. You've invested in energy in companies like Solar City. You've invested in transportation, Tesla. You've invested in some other areas, health and food and consumer technology. How do you think about the balance of those in terms of really driving change and all of them are relevant to a cleaner economy. So how do you prioritize?
Well, first and foremost, we're looking for exceptional entrepreneurs that are addressing world-changing markets. Having said that, when you do look at where the carbon is, it's transportation, agriculture, and energy. And so you do, those are some of the sectors that we spend a lot of time in, because we've got to fix those. We've got to make 21st century low carbon equivalents of what happened over the 20th century. And so we obviously have taken our knowledge from solar in a lot of directions, solar and transportation, into stationary storage, microgrids. We're in Primus Power, we're in Advanced Microgrid Solutions, which is just, an announcement, it seems, every other day about new microgrids going in. We're also addressing, one of the most fundamental impact stories of our age, which is the 1.3 billion people in this world that don't even have access to electricity and use kerosene and other dirty fuels that are bad not only for the planet but for human health. In 2016, this shouldn't be happening, and we can do better than that. And the good news is that the cost reductions in solar and storage and efficient lighting and TVs and cook stoves, all of that makes it possible to address that market. So Off-Grid Electric is an investment we've done recently that brings distributed, clean energy, solar power and storage, and efficient appliances to sub-Saharan Africa and beyond. And so that is a field that will have huge impact. It will help create a middle class in those regions where there is, maybe 3% of the population is middle class, and get those economies going. And it's super important to do that, because if you look at where the population growth is over the next 10 years, it's all there. So we can't support population growth in those regions of the world without improving the economic opportunity for the folks that live there.
So let's dig into one of the debates that's been kind of out there in the public sphere about clean energy and investment. A year ago, around the Paris Agreement, Bill Gates announced a new organization, the Breakthrough Energy Coalition, that would pull together 20 billionaires to put, hopefully, a lot of money to work. He's personally committed $2 billion. And to coordinate also with governments on a project called Mission Innovation to increase government R&D spending on clean technology. And one of the responses to that, Gates talked about the need for what he calls energy miracles, real moonshot breakthroughs in technology that could really change the game. A lot of the folks who work in this field day to day came back and said, the truth is, we don't need miracles. What we need is deployment of technologies like solar, PV, that have already gotten far down the cost curve, or batteries, which are used in things like microgrids. And we just need to get deployment of those solutions out more broadly. We need the software and controls, we need the financing, and so on. What's your take on that whole debate, Nancy, between miracle breakthroughs and deployment of technologies that already exist?
Yeah, it's kind of, we need all of it, obviously. I mean, we need all of the above. I'm not a fan of the all of the above energy strategy, because I think clean energy is better than dirty energy, and let's support clean rather than traditional. But we certainly need discoveries and we need deployment. What I would say is that I wish these people had been around 10 years ago when we were on our knees begging for capital for Solar City and Tesla and all of these companies. I mean, we've had breakthroughs, and let's not forget, and let's honor, in fact, the pioneers out there when it was really difficult to get people's attention. And it isn't just Tesla and Solar City. Dan Sugar and Tom Dinwiddie at Powerlight, real pioneers, sold their company to SunPower. I mean, just the stories that you hear of how many of which I lived through, of how we were at death's door many, many times before things started to turn around. I'm an anthropology major from way back, and so to me, miracles have a cultural construct around them, and I view those success stories as a form of miracle. I mean, there were times when I would go home and say, wow, I'm not sure this is going to work.
So like the best investment strategy was to pray.
Right. That Hail Mary always comes in handy. So I think we should honor the fact that we have had breakthroughs in the sector, and we have iconic leaders, and we have inspirational people that are the kinds of folks that our kids grow up to want to be. So let's not just decide that because Paris happened last year, the breakthroughs are starting now. They've already started, and let's give a hand to those that help make that happen. Now, that's not enough. Obviously, we've got a crisis here. We've got to act faster, better, cheaper, and make more of an impact. So we do need more capital. So I think that's where the efforts of the Breakthrough Coalition, Mission Innovation, these aggregations of sovereign wealth, of high net worth individuals, of foundations, really comes in handy. And we've sort of given them a playbook. There are ways to make money on this and make big companies and move the needle, and there are ways to not. And so I think I welcome the augmenting of this universe, because we've got a big job to do.
Let's talk then, and I agree that it's a balancing act between these two things, between breakthroughs and deployment. One of the challenges, though, and one of areas I've been focused on is how do we scale solutions that actually do work? Because we've found historically that you can have a better technology, a better solution in an area like energy or buildings or transportation, but these are hard markets to change. They're usually characterized by a small number of firms with a lot of incumbent power. They're usually characterized by regulatory complexity. And what I like to say is there's not really a model in energy or transportation of two people in a garage who changed the world, right? The way we had with, Larry and Sergey with Google, or Hewlett and Packard, or Mark Zuckerberg in his dorm room. So what's the role of commercialization in getting to success here? I mean, we've been working with large corporates to try to develop a model where there are strategic partnerships that go hand in hand with investment, so that it's not just capital, but a channel to market. What do you think? I mean, and you've seen it firsthand. I mean, Tesla, I always think, is one of the great examples of successful corporate partnerships. They had, miraculously, speaking of which, both Toyota and Daimler in there as strategic partners at the same time, plus Panasonic. So how does that all play into your equation?
Yeah, well, the role of corporates is all important, and that story is getting better all the time. Like Nextracker, the second company that Dan Sugar exited from, Dan being one of the founders of Powerlight, had a relationship with Flextronics in terms of manufacturing these tracker systems that enhance the production value of solar farms by trackers that follow the sun, and then ended up being acquired by Flextronics because they got to know what the business was, and they wanted some higher margin business. You go through our portfolio, all the time. You've got these corporates that recognize that the 21st century is going to be a lot different than what they're used to, and so I think that's a huge positive trend. I do think that we've got to recognize that if you're in this field, if you're an impact investor, you've got to engage in policy, and you're not always going to win. And Nevada, for a while, was an example of that this year in terms of the net metering battles, but we just saw that grandfathering was reinstated. So when you mobilize, when you make the case, you often have a good chance of winning. And so in terms of how we get to scale, your question, I think you have, there are some great examples of, we kind of had the trifecta of policy, technology, and capital investment. And you've got to get all of three of those things right in order to move the needle. And so I would say our investment in, just take Advanced Microgrid Solutions, Susan Kennedy's company that is integrating storage with demand side management, with renewable resources and making this hybrid building concept. Right out of the gate, she got a 50 megawatt contract from SoCalEd. That didn't happen in a vacuum. It happened because Nancy Skinner, a member of the California legislature, wrote a bill in 2010 requiring California to support storage, and worked with a lot of people to do that. And then in 2013, Carla Peterman, rock star, Rhodes Scholar, commissioner at the California Public Utilities Commission, wrote the 1,300 megawatt storage mandate, which was a response to that legislation. And then someone like Susan Kennedy, who had worked in government, been Schwarzenegger's chief of staff, had helped lay the groundwork for a lot of our climate leadership. She knows everything about utility regulation and the culture of utilities. She found a way to say, hey, I could build a business around that. And then she started that, and as I say, before she even raised the Series A, which we led, she had a big contract. So the investment we made was very much dependent on a whole chain of both policy, investment, and technology. And so it's very important to watch that. And I want to just add, since we're impact investors and we really do want to see diversity and inclusion in the clean energy economy. If you notice that story I told, it was all women that did that. And so that's something that we should celebrate as well. We have a long way to go in terms of being the inclusive economy that we can be, but those are some very encouraging signs.
Great. I want to see if Sidebar has any questions for us. Anything yet? Yeah? Okay.
We're just sorting which one.
Okay, well, while you sort, I'm going to ask, can I ask one more quick question and answer? Are you guys ready?
We're ready.
Go for it.
Good. Well, so it's kind of a conglomeration, but you mentioned that you receive many, many, many pitches, far more than you could possibly support. The title of this session is How You Combat Climate Change. It's not just about energy, there's urban ag, we're talking about water. So the question is, how do you know that a business plan is going to have impact in the way that you want it to? What is it that you're looking for? What speaks to you in the things that rise above and get your attention and your support?
Good question. At the level of venture capital, when the companies are embryonic, you don't have a spreadsheet you can really study because it's going to be wrong anyway. And so a lot of it, you can do the analyses of market size and role of competition and proprietary technology, and we do all of that. But what it comes down to often is taking the pulse of the entrepreneur, of that founding team, and really assessing. They have to have the grit, the determination, the almost maniacal focus that all entrepreneurs have to be successful. But they also, in this case, they have to be passionate about fighting climate change and believing that it is if not but one, or at least one of the most important responsibilities of our age. Because it's so hard to fight the inertia, incumbents, and it's very political, obviously. You're just, when you get into this field, you're signing up for a much higher bar of exposure and friction. And so if we really see that in entrepreneurs, they recognize that they're changing the world as they build great companies. That's a necessary element, because it isn't just a new app, a new retail concept. It is something fundamental, and the people that really believe that and have that fire to really set things on a different course, that translates very often into business success. You mentioned agriculture. Farmers Business Network, which is a newer investment of ours, it's an example of what I'm talking about. A partner at Kleiner, his partner who had been at Google, they came together. They both had farm backgrounds growing up, and they just realized farmers need need to use their own data and crowdsource it and make better decisions, because farming in this country can be a very difficult place to make a living. And so, and a lot of times the farmers don't even have access to their own data. And so a very simple concept of big data to serve the interests of farmers for themselves, not through the seed companies or the chemical companies, has profound implications for agriculture. And so, and will reduce inputs, will reduce costs, and will improve the ability of farmers to make a living and stay on their land, which we need as we see population growth demanding a much more productive food supply.
Well, I think that's a good place to leave it. Big data, software, analytics are all going to contribute in these different important sectors: energy, ag, transportation. Please join me in thanking Nancy Pfund.
And Andrew Shapiro.
Thank you.